Okay, you should be starting from a file that's at least this far along. I know that some of you have already added some of the rotation and the rocket thrust to this, which is good. You can go ahead and try to skip those relevant parts or just watch the video in case I do something different that you want to learn. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop the playback of that. So I want to get these rocket boosters set up to give some thrust when it's going up and down. So I'm going to select the 3 boosters in the outliner here, and then I'm going to press Control G and make a group. I'm going to undo that real quick and show you through the menus, and then create, or is it modify? Yeah, it's modify. Right, I can't find it in the menu, so it's Control G or Command G if you're on a Mac. So Control G, and I'm just going to rename this group to thrusters group. And then in the viewport, I'm going to press Control 1, or on the Mac it's Command 1 to isolate these thrusters. And I want to move the pivot point for the thrusters to the tip. So when I press W, I see that the pivot point's all the way back here. And since I want these to squash and stretch, I don't want them squashing and stretching from back there. I want them squashing and stretching from up here. So I'm going to press D to get the move key, and I'm going to select that tip right there. So you're going to have to play around with it a little bit, but if you get your cursor right over it, you want just the red dot. You don't want an edge, just the dot. And you want to say position like that. Then left click, press D to get out of it, and there it is. It's scaling properly. So mine doesn't look like it's exactly on the tip, and that's because it's a subdivision surface. If I press 1 to go back to a polygon, you can see that it's that the pivot's right on it. So 3 is just a subdivision surface, 1 is polygons. Subdivision surfaces is something we'll cover in a few weeks. Go back to black, press Control 1 to get out of Isolate Select, and there's the rest of my rocket. So now all I got to do is set up the squash and stretch. So I'm going to go to Windows, Node Editor, this right here. There's already a video on it, but I'm going to blast through this again real fast. Select the thrusters group, click this to graph up and downstream connections. Click these little bubbles to expand that. Press Tab, get a multiply divide. Alright, and I want to expand the scale Y, put it into input 1Y, double click on the multiply divide, change it to power in its attribute editor, and set input 2 to 0.5 to give me the square root. Press Tab, multiply divide, expand those tabs, expand input 2, take input 1y and put it input 2y, double click, multiply divide, change the operation to divide, and set the input to 1. Alright, so now this is the part that I saw some people get confused on, and this is because my is confusing, right? So we want to take the output of y, which it's very easy to think that you would be grabbing the output of y by clicking on this right here, right? Because this is like the outside, this is the in, this is the out. It's not, unfortunately. So what you want is you want to grab the output of y and put it on the scale x and the scale z. Alright, let's move that down and test this out real quick. Select the thrusters group. Alright, there it is, it's working. Squashing and stretching. Just like we've done before. Okay, so this thrusters group is buried in the hierarchy. I'm going to go ahead and close that window. So, like, you may not have the second rocket node. I did that by mistake. So you want to be able to animate your thrusters from up here where everything else is. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an attribute, and we're going to move the thrusters group scale Y up to this here, so we can control it from here without having to expand a bunch of stuff. So with the rocket, the top group selected right here, right, I'm going to expand this so you can see like nothing else is selected, just the top node right there. Go to Modify, Add Attributes, and we'll call it Boosters. And yeah, all the defaults can stay the same, except for the this here, the actual default value. I want to set that to 1, so that by default my thrusters will have a scale of 1. And then I want to go to Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor. And when I do that, it automatically loads the rocket on the left, which is good. That's what I want. So if I scroll all the way down here, I've got boosters, and I've got thruster group, which I guess I could have called that the thrusters, but whatever. To click reload right after you select the group that's got your thrusters in it, or your boosters. Why don't I just rename that right now? That's going to annoy me. There. It updated automatically. Now I'm going to select the boosters on the left side, which is, this is the rockets attribute. Now I'm going to look for scale. And it will actually be grayed out. Yep, there it is. Okay, so there's scale. So scale is a vector, boosters is a float. So basically a float is just a number with a decimal, and a vector is a group of 3 numbers. And since I've got 1 number, I can't feed it into 3 numbers, into a vector. But if I expand, excuse me, if I expand scale, you see there's a scale Y option, and that's bold, so I can select that. And there we go. So I've got boosters are now tied into scale Y. I go ahead and go to the top here and select my boosters attribute, and just middle mouse drag left and right in the viewport. Yep, I've got control of it. So all the way down in the hierarchy there, just like with this stuff, I've promoted that control up to the top. Go ahead and close that window. All right, so with that done, that was a little bit of a review of some of the stuff we've covered, but with that, we are ready to actually start to animate these boosters doing their thing.